I may be 2 years too late, but it is now time for me to give my personal take on Xbox Series X versus PlayStation 5. Let's do this. So of course, as a lot of you have known, the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 both launched in the fall of 2020, both about a week apart in November of 2020. And of course, back then, they were near impossible to find. Now, I was able to secure an Xbox Series X on Amazon, so I've had one pretty much since launch. I think I was a couple days late, but that's it. However, it took until 2 weeks ago, as of the time of this recording, in August of 2022, for me to finally be able to acquire a PlayStation 5, because they've been very, very difficult to find, as well as scalped to hell. So it's been pretty tough, and it's still pretty tough to find one. I got lucky when I got my PlayStation 5 because I found it at GameStop. If you want to see the whole detail on how I got a PS5, watch the Bargain Game Hunter. There's a two-part episode, kind of, where I acquire trading credit and then end up acquiring my PS5. So watch that if you want to see the full explanation. But I wanted to finally do my take on both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, because there are some notable differences. Now, of course, everyone has their own opinion when it comes to which is better between Xbox and PlayStation. And I just want to state for the record, I like to remain console agnostic. I own an Xbox Series X, I own a PS5, and I own a Nintendo Switch. I like all of them. The nice thing is, if you remain console agnostic and don't fanboy out, you can play all the games and not have to worry about it, and that's what I like to do. So every generation, it's always my goal to acquire all three of the main consoles so that I can enjoy all the games that come out on all of them. So that's cool. But anyway, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this video, where I'm going to compare the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 based on my personal accounts. So first off, they're both good systems. I will say, they both run well, the games look terrific. It actually took me a few days to be able to finally get the PS5 running using 4K, because my TV only has one 4K port, and I tried my old splitter, it did not work in 4K, so I had to get a new splitter. But now that I have a new splitter, I'm able to enjoy both my PlayStation 5 and my Xbox Series X in 4K. They both look terrific. Now, again, just to preface this, I've only owned the PS5 for about 2 weeks, so I don't know all of the ins and outs of that system, but I think I've played it enough to have a proper analysis and compare it to the Series X, which I do know pretty well inside and out. So let's start off with, of course, the elements that a lot of people think about first when they think about a new console, and that is the controller. So this, of course, is the Forza Horizon 5 Limited Edition Xbox Series X controller. Now, with the Xbox controller, Microsoft decided to take the if it ain't broke, don't fix it too much method. This is basically the exact same controller as the Xbox One, with a couple minor differences. First, the buttons are a little more clicky. Second, they added a dedicated share button in the center right here. And third, they redesigned the D-pad to be more angled like this rather than a traditional. So this is styled much more after the Elite controller, except now it's just a permanent part of the Xbox controller. And the result is great. To be completely honest, I've always thought the Xbox One controller is one of the best controllers ever made. I love how it feels in my hands. The off-center sticks, I think, work particularly well for first-person shooters. They also work well for things like racing games, but I really like the off-center sticks. It just feels right holding an Xbox controller. So I personally really enjoy it. I think it's a great console, or a great controller. We're not getting to the console yet. Of course, they do have a number of features which I think are very underutilized in Xbox games. One of the biggest is the adaptive triggers. That's something that's been in these controllers since launch. I don't know if people knew that, but the Xbox One has had adaptive triggers forever. Forza Motorsport 5, when it came out in 2013, used the adaptive triggers, so the farther you pull down, you'll feel more vibration. I wish more games would use the adaptive triggers, but overall, I think the Xbox controller is a great controller. It does exactly what you need it to. They took what was good about the Xbox controller and made it better with the Series X. So, personally, I love it. I currently have 3 limited editions. This is my main one right now, but I also have the blue one. I forgot what it's called. And I have the 20th anniversary one. So I've got 3 limited edition Xbox One controllers. So it tells you how I feel about it. However, as good as the Xbox controller is, I gotta give credit where credit is due. Sony made a big deal about the DualSense when they first announced the PlayStation 5, that this was going to be a revolutionary controller. And in all seriousness, it kinda is. I really like this controller. Out of all of the PlayStation controllers that I've used over the years, and I've used all of them, because I've owned every PlayStation except the PS1, but it has the same controller essentially as PS2. This is by far the best Sony produced controller ever made, by a long shot. But in fact, it's one of the best controllers, period, because of all the features that this thing has. Now, I will tell you, if you get a PS5, the first game you need to play, and I don't care why you bought the PS5, the first game you need to play is Astro's Playroom, which is a free packing game. The reason why I say that is because it's going to show you all of the features of the DualSense, and there are a lot of them. The DualSense is such a cool controller. How the vibration and the feel of the controller is altered based on what's going on. You have thumbsticks thumbsticks are fine. You have triggers that are adaptable and change based on what's going on. So for instance, if you're firing a gun, you'll feel recoil from the trigger. The levels of vibration are really impressive. The touchpad is super well done. I know the PS4 had a touchpad, but this one is significantly better. It has a microphone built into the controller. You can blow into it. There's a speaker on the controller. Sometimes in certain games, it will play messages or sound effects from the controller, which add to the atmosphere. If you're looking for an immersive experience, I honestly think this is one of the best examples of how to make gaming super immersive. Sony knocked it out of the park. The only thing, well, there's 2 things that I think are not as good about the DualSense. Only 2. First, thumbsticks. I know that is a personal choice. This does feel pretty good. I still think I like the off-centered thumbsticks a little bit better. The only other thing is the battery life. Obviously, this controller is a beast. There's a lot going on in it, so it's gonna drain pretty fast. It has an internal battery, and they die pretty quick. I will say, if you planning on having like an epic PS5 gaming weekend, you're probably going to need a second DualSense on standby. So have it charging while you're playing a game, and then as soon as your first one runs out of power, quick swap it. These don't super last when it comes to charge. Now, the cord you're given along with the DualSense is fairly long. It's not quite as long as the one you get for the Xbox Play and Charge kit, but it's fairly long, so you could just plug it in if you want to. But no one wants a wired controller, let's be honest. So like I said, the only knocks I would put against the DualSense are the battery life and the thumbsticks. But again, the thumbsticks thing, it's just personal preference. But overall, I have to give credit where credit is due. This is a revolutionary controller. As much as I love the Xbox controller for being exactly what it is and just improved, this is a game changer. And I honestly hope Microsoft decides to take some of the things that Sony was able to do with this controller and maybe adapt them for the future. Simple thing, use adaptive triggers more. That would help. It's a feature the Xbox controllers had since launch. Why not use them more? Use them like the DualSense uses theirs, if you can. So, this is an incredible controller. You absolutely won't really get the full experience of PS5 until you hold this controller in your hand and play something that really uses it. So, I love the DualSense. DualSense is great. Let's get to the consoles themselves. Now, obviously, when it comes to design, Sony and Microsoft went very different directions when it comes to that. Microsoft went for a much more subtle approach with the Xbox Series X and made it just a big black tower. It kind of looks like a PC tower, but even smaller. And honestly, that's fine. I feel the Xbox Series X is a console that is meant not to be a showcase, but more so it's supposed to blend in to your existing equipment. So it's not something you're gonna be like, oh, look at my beautiful Xbox. It's more so just, I have an Xbox Series X, cool. It just blends into what you currently have. The PS5 is a showpiece, clearly. Based on the very abstract design and how bulky the thing is, you can tell that when you have a PS5, you're intended to flaunt it. You want to have it be the focal point of your entertainment center. Now, on the negative side, I will say the PS5 size can make it a little bit challenging to fit in some entertainment centers. Now, I put mine just on top of my entertainment center where my PS4 was. It's bulkier for sure. It's definitely taller in one corner than my PS4 was, and it takes up a bit more space. I did get it to fit okay if you use the vertical stand, or the horizontal stand, sorry. But it's definitely bulky, and I don't think it's gonna fit super well on everybody's entertainment center. But it is a cool looking console, so if it's something you want to flaunt to your friends, be like, hey, I got a PS5, you can definitely do that. Xbox, I think it's more so just, it's there, you can enjoy it, it's in the background, it works. In terms of design, I think they both have their merits. Personally, it's tough to say which one I like better, because I do like how original and unique the PS5 looks. However, I think the Xbox is more practical, so it really just depends on what side of the coin you're on. If you want something that's just goes with everything else you got, the Xbox is definitely going to appeal to you. If you want something to be a showpiece, then the PS5, I think, has the edge. Now, in terms of the consoles themselves, here's where things get interesting. Both have merits and both have disadvantages. For the Xbox, again, Microsoft decided to take the if it ain't broke, don't fix it routine. The UI for the Xbox Series X is virtually the same as the Xbox One. Some people really like the Xbox One interface, some people really don't. If you really like it, great, it's the exact same. You won't have to worry about relearning anything. Personally, I think it's very simple to figure out. Everything is laid out in a way that makes a lot of sense. It works, you can customize things, you can add pins. I think it's great. So personally, I really like the UI for the Xbox. The PS5 UI is interesting. It, to me, is a kind of streamlined version of the PS4's. However, there's some weird changes that they made that I'm not the biggest fan of. First off, they removed themes, which Xbox has themes. PS4 had themes, and you could do some really cool dynamic themes on the PS4. Like, I had a Ghost of Tsushima theme, I had a Persona 5 theme. They were really cool. They removed themes in favor of when you put your icon over a game, it'll kind of bring up a temporary overlay, which that's cool and all. I don't mind that, but I think it would be cooler if you could just have an overall theme like you had before, or like the Xbox has, to be honest. So that's a weird one. The other one is figuring out how to turn the system off, which sounds like a weird complaint. With the Xbox, it's very simple. You just hold down the jewel, it brings up a menu, you switch to power off. That's it. PS5, there's no obvious way to turn your system off in the menu. And when you hold the PlayStation button on the DualSense, it doesn't always bring up a sub-menu. The trick that I've learned is you have to go into a game, then hold down the PS button, and that will bring up the sub-menu when you can scroll to power off or put it on rest mode, which is what you typically want to do. So that's a little wonky. It's fast. I will say the PS5 UI is very snappy, a little bit snappier than the Xbox One. But overall, I think due to ease of use and customization, I think I'll give a slight edge to the Xbox. Now, when it comes to exclusive console features, both have their merits. Of course, the PlayStation 5's really big ones or the big one is this. The controller is kind of the game changer for the PS5. The Xbox, instead of focusing so much on the controller, they decided to focus on improvements when it comes to performance. So the two main features that I feel Xbox has flaunted the most are, well, three, I guess. Backwards compatibility, which the Xbox is compatible with select Xbox and Xbox 360 games, as well as all Xbox One minus Kinect games, and of course all Series X games. PlayStation 5 is only compatible with PlayStation 4 games, and not all of them. There are some that are excluded. There is a list. And PS5 games. No compatibility with PS3, PS2, PS1. However, they kind of added that functionality if you decide to join the upper tiers of PlayStation Plus, which they modeled after Xbox's Game Pass. So they basically locked backwards compatibility behind a paywall, which I'm not a fan of. I think if you own a disc for an older game, you should just be able to put it in your console and enjoy it, rather than, oh, you can play this, but you have to pay extra money. So that might just be me, but personally, I would much prefer being able to take a disc that I have on my shelf for an older console, be able to put it into my console and enjoy the game that I paid for. I can do that with the Xbox with not all of my games, but quite a few of them. And in fact, all those games will have performance boosts and tend to look and play a lot better than they would have on the original hardware. Whereas the PS5, I haven't tried the backwards compatible stuff personally because I don't subscribe to the upper tiers of PS Plus, but it bothers me that it's an upcharge. So there's that. But besides backwards compatibility, I feel the two biggest features that the Xbox likes to flaunt are smart delivery and quick resume. And I have to say both of these features are pretty game-changing. Smart delivery means that essentially when you insert a game into the Xbox Series X, the system will detect what version it is and upgrade it to the best version available. Now, typically this means if there is a next-gen update for an Xbox One game, it will automatically update to that version. Not all games support smart delivery, so just keep that in mind. And some publishers, they specifically will release an Xbox One version and an Xbox Series X version, so you have to make sure you pick out the right version. But if it is a game that does not have a dedicated Xbox Series X version and has a next-gen version, smart delivery will automatically upgrade that game to the next-gen version. And that's awesome. And it's kind of what Microsoft is trying to push as the norm when it comes to next-gen games. They want their gamers to be able to enjoy the best versions possible on the best hardware possible. And I think that's great. Quick resume. This is something where until you don't experience it, it's tough to see how great it is. Essentially, part of the Xbox Series X's memory is dedicated to saving specific spots where you last played a game. So if I take out a disc, put in another disc and play something else, if I put in the same disc that I played before, if the game supports quick resume, the game will pull up and it will bring me to the exact location that I was before. No need to go through menus, no need to load. It just automatically brings me back to where I was before. It's awesome. It is a feature that no other console has that is really beneficial, especially if you're one of those people like me who has gamer ADD, as I like to call it, and you like to bounce between a number of different games. Quick resume is your best friend. It is such a great feature. Now, if you compare that to the PS5, PS5 does not have either of those features. And in fact, when it comes to comparing it to smart delivery, PS5 is not great on that front, because PS5 will essentially install a game. If it's a PS4 game with a PS5 upgrade, it will initially install the PS4 version. And sometimes there are certain games where you're playing the PS4 version and you don't even realize it, and you have to actually upgrade it to the PS5 version. So it doesn't have any kind of automatic system that upgrades right off the bat. So that's an unfortunate thing. The other, of course, no quick resume. So every time you take out a disc and put it back in, you're going to have to reload back in. Which, I mean, to some people, that's not that big of a deal. But I do feel if it had something like quick resume, that would be fantastic. It would definitely improve the experience on the PS5. So I will say both load incredibly quickly. The PS5's SSD is fantastic. It loads very fast. I tried out a few different games on it, and all of them load incredibly quickly. So the SSD is real for sure. I know a lot of PC gamers are like, oh, we've had SSDs forever. Yeah, we get it, but the SSD on console is a new thing, and both of them have really fast SSDs. They load games incredibly fast. It's great. And of course, the visuals, pretty much the same. They have slightly different hardware, and certain games look better on certain consoles by a very marginal difference. Like, when I'm playing a game like Deathloop and I compare it to Halo Infinite, obviously, very different games, they both look fantastic on their various consoles. So it just depends on which hardware the developer was really trying to focus on in terms of their versions, but games look fantastic on both. So what it really comes down to, at least for me, is okay, do you want the DualSense and the sense of immersion that the PS5 brings? Or do you want the kind of all-in-one upgraded gamer experience that the Xbox brings? Because the Series X is going to give you a bunch of performance upgrades and just little things here and there that improve your gaming experience, whether it's the PS5 is focusing on the big picture and having a super immersive experience with the DualSense controller. That's really what it comes down to. I'm not going to pick a winner because there is no winner. They are both fantastic consoles. If you're a console gamer, I encourage you, if you have the means, get both of them and experience them both for yourself. You'll be able to decide for yourself which one you prefer for certain games. Personally, I'm still going to keep using my Xbox Series X as my workhorse, so the vast majority of games I'm going to get on that, unless it's something that I know for a fact has specific DualSense functionality, then I'm probably going to get it on PS5. Because I really want to see what kinds of things developers can do with the DualSense, because as long as they support it, the DualSense is fantastic, and I really want to see more games really use the DualSense for all it's worth. But if they decide not to, then I might as well get it on Xbox, because it's going to run a little bit better and have quick resume. So those are my thoughts on the Xbox Series X and the PS5. I know I am about 2 years late on that description, but hey, I just got a PS5, so that's why. But that is going to do it for this episode of Gaming Talk. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're new around here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell. That way you know when new videos drop. Of course, we have Bargain Game Hunter on Fridays, and Mondays we have probably a gameplay series, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I know at the time of this recording, I'm still working on The Quarry, but we have other videos coming out as well, so stay tuned. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next episode of Gaming Talk. Bye.